everybody. My name is Nathan Smith, and I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator for the Central Arkansas Library System. Thank you so much for coming and joining me today for a video for the web. Very excited to show you all this material. It's very useful, relevant stuff right now, and I want to make sure that you are well equipped for it. Couple of quick preliminary things to get out of the way here. First of all, we've got a ton of great stuff coming up in the system over the next little while. We've got a we have kind of the final event of for our Black History Month programming coming up tomorrow. And that is Black History of Hip Hop. So it's going to be pretty cool, and I definitely encourage you to check that out. And we've got other stuff, a lot of other stuff coming up as well. We've got a couple of things for Will Eisner Week next week, so I hope you'll join us for all of that stuff. If you go to cals.org, move your mouse over events and click on search for an event online, that should show you the list of all the upcoming stuff and the stuff that's happening right now. So check that out and join us, and I think you'll have a good time. So the other big thing that I always like to do is at the beginning of every class, I always encourage folks to ask questions throughout. The point of a technology class is for you to learn useful things about using technology. So if you're not learning useful things about using technology, if, for instance, you're confused by the terminology that I'm using, or if you didn't quite catch what I said, or if there's some question at the back of your mind that's really bothering you and distracting you from paying attention, all of those are bad for our desired outcome, which is having you learn useful things about technology. So if you have questions of any sort like that, I definitely want you to go ahead and just speak up, so to speak, and ask those questions. To do that, if you're joining me here in Zoom, it's pretty easy. If you're on your computer, just move your mouse down towards the bottom of the Zoom window, and you should see a little speech bubble that's labeled chat. Click on that, and it should pop out a little chat box, probably on the right-hand side of your screen. And you can type in a message there, press enter, and I should see it. If you're on a mobile device with the Zoom app, that's pretty easy too. All you need to do is tap in the middle of your screen. Find where it says more, usually in the top right corner, I think. Tap on that and tap chat in that menu, and that'll get you to the chat area of the Zoom mobile app. If you're joining me through YouTube or Facebook, you can use the comments on Facebook or the live chat on YouTube, and I should see those and be able to respond to them. There's maybe just a tiny bit of delay between between what's happening on Zoom and when it goes out to Facebook and YouTube, but it's pretty good. So you know, it shouldn't be you shouldn't be too much delayed between the two. And of course, if you want, you can always follow the link in the Facebook post or in the video description on YouTube and join us here on Zoom. Feel free. Finally, let me know in the chat or the comments or whatever you have access to if there are any technical problems throughout the class. So if, for example, my audio goes out, if my video goes out, and certainly if you can't see the screen during the portion of the class where I'm screen sharing. In all of those situations, it's definitely important to make sure that you're able to, you know, I definitely want to know about technical problems when they crop up as soon as possible, so that way we can rectify those and we can make the most of our time. So that's it for the introductory stuff. Let's dive into video for the web. So this class is going to be divided up into 3 parts. The first part is going to be is going to be shooting video, kind of getting the raw materials, I guess you might say. And it's obviously, if you have bad footage and bad audio, it's going to be really hard for you to make a good video out of that. I mean, if it's very, very, very compelling, you might be able to make it work and you know, grab people's attention. But honestly, like for the most part, you want to have good audio and video in order to make a good final product. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about the editing portion of it. For that, we're going to hop into Shotcut, which is free and open source video editing software. You can download that if you haven't already and you want to follow along at shotcut.org. Assuming that nothing goes catastrophically wrong, though, if you don't have it installed or you don't want to follow along, you just want to watch this time, that's perfectly fine too. And you should be able to circle back and watch the recorded version on YouTube or on our Facebook page shortly. You know, after the fact, if you want to rewatch and follow along with me at that point. Also, I guess I'll also say, if you are planning on following along and you have not yet downloaded those example files, I'm going to drop that link that was up on the screen earlier in the chat. And I very strongly recommend, if you want to follow along, you go ahead and start downloading those video files. I have a good internet connection here, and I was trying to re-download them before I realized they were already on my computer. And I found that it was downloading incredibly slowly. So it seems like something may be wrong with their servers, or they may just not have great internet or great website hosting. And so in either case, probably go ahead and get that download started. And that way you'll have the files on your computer by the time we get to that second part of the class. In that particular, if you follow that link, you should see, I believe I used scene 1 at the website where these came from, or where these clips came from that we're going to be editing. So yeah, but it should say that when you follow the link that I just gave you in chat there. Okay, so, and then the final part, we'll talk about, we're talking about shooting, we're talking about editing, and then the final part that we're going to talk about is uploading. So we're going to talk about uploading particularly to YouTube, but if you're uploading to another platform, usually it's going to be about the same process, not all that different. And YouTube, of course, is the most popular video service on the internet by far. So it'll be more likely to apply to you than any of showing you any of the others. So we'll talk about uploading and getting everything set up so that you can, so that folks who might be interested can find your video. Folks who stumble across your video will know what they're in for when they click the play button, and you can kind of create a good amount of sort of stickiness and hopefully build your audience. So that's the summary. That's the rundown for today. Let's go ahead and talk about shooting. So there are a number of different things to talk about here, but we probably want to start with our equipment. So when you go to shoot video, you want to figure out, what kind of device you're using to do it. My suggestion, particularly since this is a class that's focused on shooting good video but keeping it cost effective, my suggestion would be, if you have a decent smartphone, use your phone to shoot. If you, when you do that, what's going to happen is, your phone, well, our phones have become our cameras in a lot of respects, and particularly makers of the most popular kinds of smartphones like Samsung and Apple, they spend a lot of time trying to make the camera functions of their phone really good, because they know that most folks who, they know that that's one of the main features that folks rely on when they purchase a phone. So if you do that, you're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck than you do if you go out and purchase a camera separately, particularly if you're not, particularly if you're trying to be a little more frugal with it. Cameras that'll give you a really good, a really good picture will run you several $100s, generally speaking, if you're buying them as a standalone camera, because they're made for people who are, which you might call enthusiasts, so people who maybe don't do video or photography for a living, but kind of like that's like one of their things, and or they're, the even more expensive stuff is made for professionals. So your phone is usually a good choice. One key thing about this, if at all possible, avoid using the front-facing camera on your phone, the kind of the camera that you would use to take a selfie or to talk on FaceTime or other sorts of video chat, or hey, even Zoom, if you're using it on a mobile device. The front-facing camera of your device is perfectly adequate for things like that, video chat kinds of stuff and taking a quick selfie, but it's not the good camera on your phone. The good camera on your phone is on the back, because most of the time you're taking pictures of something else rather than yourself. And there's more room on the back for them to put, to put more advanced hardware in there, and a lens that captures more light. We'll talk about this in depth a little bit later on, but obviously light is super duper important when we're talking about video, because the way that a camera works is it takes in light from the environment and it tries to approximate that digitally. And so if your camera is not getting enough light, it's really hard for it to come out with a good image. So, use the back camera if at all possible. Even if you're shooting a video of yourself, my advice would be to set it up so that you're in front of the back camera, press record, and then go sit down and start your video or whatever. That way you'll just get a lot better results that way. Another thing in terms of hardware that you want to think about is the sound. Sound is super important. In fact, one of the things, this is a pretty interesting thing I learned. One of the things that made YouTube so successful, particularly at first, was although the videos that were on YouTube in those early days, 2005, 2006, although those videos looked bad, YouTube emphasized keeping the sound running consistently and making the sound pretty high quality, even sometimes at the expense of the quality of the image. And because of the way our brain works, if you have good sound and a passable picture, that feels a lot more interesting and immersive than if you have bad sound and a really good picture. Bad sound pulls you out in a way that even bad image quality doesn't. So one of the things that distinguishes more professional video content from non-professional video content is the quality of sound. And so if you want to, if you want your videos to really hit, you want to try and get really good sound. And if you have to choose, sound is more important than picture. If you can, and if it's in the budget, use a microphone of some sort that's external to your phone. Your phone has a microphone built into it, but the microphone that's built into your phone is designed to make calls clear enough and loud enough that folks can hear you on the other end. So it's not really designed for video production, even though there's a lot of emphasis on photos and videos when they make a phone. the mic on your phone is not designed to capture high quality audio. It's designed to capture audio that's good enough for a really good phone call. So because of that, you want to try and use an external microphone if you can. Depending on the kind of video you're doing, that could take a number of forms. Personally, I have this microphone right here if I'm doing a class like this, or if I'm doing a meeting on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams or whatever, or if I'm doing essentially a tutorial video of some sort, I'll use this or a similar setup, where they have we have some more pro level and pro cost microphones at the library. So I'll use something like this, just kind of a bigger mic to capture my audio for something like that, where I don't have to be moving around much. This particular mic, by the way, is the Blue Yeti. It's a pretty popular one. I believe it's $130. And if you're getting pretty into this, then that might be a good something like that might be a good purchase for you. This one connects via USB to my computer, so you might you'll definitely need to look for a microphone that's compatible with a phone, which this would be. You just need an adapter for it. But if you have a mic that's not compatible with your phone and you're shooting with your phone, that's going to add another kind of extra layer of complication that you probably don't want. But you can also do things like you can get a lapel or lavalier mic that clips on to your shirt and allows you to get better audio for a particular person. You can get there are little headset mics that kind of look like you're on stage at some sort of pop concert that you can use. I don't prefer the look of those myself, but your mileage may vary. So there are a whole host of different things that you can try that will to get higher quality audio for your videos. The other things that are important about it, of course, whether you have a mic or if you're just using the onboard mic on your phone, one of the key things to think about is the placement of your mic. Get the mic as close as you possibly can. So if you have a choice between putting the mic way over here and putting the mic close to your face, put it close to your face, if all else being equal. And so that's definitely something to think about. But the other big thing to mention is just making sure that it's quiet. One of the things that, as humans, our brains are really good at filtering out certain types of things automatically. So if I'm here in the house, I may be hearing the heat or the air conditioner. I may be hearing a fan above me. I might be hearing the dogs, making some noise, or other people in other parts of the house talking or things like that. All of that sort of stuff is stuff that we can live with and doesn't bother us that much, just as humans out in the world. But when you're when you're shooting video or recording audio, that kind of stuff matters because the microphone doesn't know the difference between the voice that it's supposed to be paying attention to and the noise of the garbage truck outside. And so you can do some things to minimize those sorts of background noises, but it can be tricky. So it's preferable to go somewhere that it's quiet. If you go to a closet or go to a room that you don't use that much and kind of stuff a towel under the door, or head to the garage, or wherever you can to kind of get out of the way and not have so much noise in the background. That'll serve you much better in the long run. So, so we've talked about equipment, the hardware. Well, we've talked about some of it. One other piece of hardware that you'll want to think, we've talked about sound. One other piece of hardware that you'll want to think about, no, I guess two other types of hardware that you want to think about. One is how you're going to set up your equipment. So if you're using a phone, obviously we all know if you set your phone up somewhere, it's to shoot video or whatever, it's probably going to fall over before too long. So I definitely recommend, if at all possible, get a tripod of some sort. So you can improvise this. You can, there are, I'm sure, many things around your house, picture frame stands or, disposable cups that you can cut up, or all sorts of things that you can do to sort of have a place to prop your phone up where it won't slip down and interrupt the video. But a tripod can be really, really handy. I personally have a tripod. I got it from Amazon. It was like $20. And I got a little phone clip that goes on top of it. And what I can do is just take that clip my phone into it, and set up the tripod where I want it to be. That way my shot stays stable. And unless there's a good reason for you to be holding the phone in your hand and kind of moving around or panning, then it's best to keep things stable by setting your phone up somewhere and keeping it in place. So I definitely recommend that. That's a good thing to work with when you're shooting, because that gives you a lot of options. You definitely want to make sure that you, we'll talk about that in just a moment, actually. So that's another piece of equipment that I definitely recommend to folks. One last kind of equipment piece that I want to mention, it's equipment, and it's also about how you set up your shots. So we'll kind of be easing into that because that's pretty important too. One of the things that you want to think about is, as I mentioned before, the light. So you obviously want to make sure that there's plenty of light in general getting into your shot. It's always easier, or almost always easier, certain circumstances where that's not the case. But generally speaking, it's easier to make a shot look a little dimmer or darker after the fact than it is to take poorly lit video and try to brighten it up. Brightening it up and making it look good, it's really, really hard to do. Dimming some video that's brightly lit is super duper easy, because light is how your camera gets information about what's in front of it. And so if there's no light, then basically you're trying to, then either you're just gonna make dark spots in your shot look slightly brighter, or your computer, the software that you're using, is going to be trying to fill in those spots of no information with some information that it's basically just making up. And so that doesn't work super well for, it doesn't work super well to brighten up a dark shot. It's easier to darken a too bright shot in general. And so, so having a lot of light around you or around your subject or whatever you're shooting is really good. Obviously, shooting outdoors, although it can cause some problems with the sound, like I mentioned before, and and it's a less controlled environment in general. Shooting outside is really good in terms of light because you have the sun, and that is a really, really, really bright light. If you're shooting indoors, you can control your audio and all of that a little bit more, and you don't have to worry about the weather so much. But it's going to be a little dimmer inside because, of course, it is. What professionals do is they get lighting gear. So you'll have big old lights sitting on a stand, and they can control the color of the light, and they can control sort of where it's pointed and how high it is and how bright it is and so on and so forth. And they can place that wherever they need to. When you're working on a budget, you still have a lot of options in terms of light. What I would suggest, one other inexpensive piece of gear that you could get, particularly if you're doing what you might call talking head videos, like what you're seeing right now, like what I'm doing. If you're doing things like that, one particular piece of gear that I'd recommend considering at least is what's called a ring light. You can get, again, you can pay a lot for this, or you can get one for 20 or 30 bucks. That's perfectly fine. And what it is literally exactly what it sounds like. It is a light that's set up in a ring, and you could put your camera in the middle of it or kind of behind it, that sort of thing. So it makes it really easy to, it makes it really easy to get plenty of light on your face if it's a shot that's set up kind of like this. And that's really good. If you look at me, I've got a ring light in front of me right now behind my webcam. If you look at me, you'll notice right here, there are some little reflections of light in my eyes. That's called an eye light. And it makes you look a lot more lively on camera than if you don't have that. If you don't have it, your eyes are kind of in shadow, and you look a little dead. And so having light that, particularly if it's a kind of a portrait situation like this, having that light hitting your eyes and making sure that you can see into somebody's eyes and that the eyes stand out is really useful and important. So a ring light helps with that, because essentially if it's around your camera, whatever your camera is pointing at also has a light coming at it from the same angle. And so you're really likely to catch that eye light. But there are many things that you can do that don't require you to buy any additional equipment. So you probably have some lamps around your house. If you do, you can set up your lamps wherever you need them, and shoot that way. You can either leave the shade on or take it off, depending on whether you need more light or whether you need light that's more sort of diffuse, not as harsh, or kind of a harsher, more hard-edged light. I've done that a lot, actually. Up until recently, my setup, even for these classes, was I had a lamp with two bulbs here behind my webcam. I had a lamp over here, a lamp over here, maybe two over here, actually. And then one two over here, one more in the front and one behind, and one over here. It was a lot. It was a lot of lamps. And you can totally make that work, and it looks pretty good. One suggestion, if you're going to use lamps for lighting, is to get some bulbs that are, if you look at the package of the bulb, it'll say they're daylight type bulbs. If you get those, they give you more of a bluish light rather than kind of a warm, orangey light. That difference between sort of bluish light on one end and orangish light on the other end is what we call color temperature. A high color temperature is going to be light that's more blue, and a low color temperature is going to be light that's more orange. And generally speaking, a light that's at that's more toward the bluish end of things looks better on video. So that's what those daylight bulbs give you, is a little bit more bluish light than your kind of soft white everyday kind of light bulbs. So you can get those, you can put those in instead of the soft white, and then you'll get lighting that looks better on video. And that's a very cheap upgrade overall. So let's talk about positioning lights since we're on the subject. One thing there are a lot of different ways you can do it, but there are some principles to bear in mind, and there's kind of a good starting place that we have in kind of video and film world that I definitely want to lay out for you. And that's what's called key lighting. This is sort of the traditional method of setting up lights for film and video. The way it works is you can think of kind of a triangle almost, with if you are the subject of the shot, you're in the middle of the triangle and you're facing two of the sides, and then two of the points, and one of the points is essentially directly behind you. And so the way it works is on one point of that triangle, you have what's called the key light. That's why it's called key lighting. And the key light is the main light for your scene. So that's where the light, essentially, that's where the light is going to seem to be coming from. And so, so for example, if it's a scene where you are sitting next to a window, you probably put the key light essentially at the same angle as the window if you're doing close up of view. So that way it looks realistic, as though the light, the light that you're creating from your lighting setup is in fact coming in through the window and hitting the subject's face. So the key light is pretty bright, and it's going to be, as I said, the primary light in the scene. That's going to be the scene that, or the light that people really notice when they're watching your footage. Then there's what we call the fill light. The fill light is on the other point of the triangle that's in front of you. So kind of at an angle, traditionally kind of at an angle over here. And that is going to be a dimmer light than the key light that's meant to fill in the areas that would be shadowed by the key light. So if you look at my face here, it's lit pretty evenly. Part of that's the ring light. But this is the kind of thing that you want with key lighting. You'll your key light will be somewhat brighter. You'll actually have slightly less evenness on the face with key lighting. So you might have something more kind of like this, where essentially half of the face is a little bit darker, half of the face is a little bit lighter, and those are the two sides that are facing the fill light versus the key light. But in general, you want lighting on somebody's face to be fairly smooth, so you don't have massive shadows on their face, because that makes them look a little scary. So make sure that so when you're setting up your lighting, you want to be mindful of that, and just make sure that nobody nobody has weird shadows on their face, unless that's the effect you're going for. It can be the effect you're going for. Back in college, I really liked film noir a lot, and they use lighting that's a little harsher like that. So there's one side of the face that's really bright and one side that's deeply in shadow a lot of times. And so it's totally an effect you can go for. But if you want people to be focused on, the content that you're presenting to them rather than the unusual lighting primarily, then you probably want to stick with something more traditional. So the last piece of key lighting, we've got our key light, the main bright light. We've got our fill light, which fills in those shadows so that we don't get too much contrast between one side of a face or of the subject than the other side. And then you have the backlight. which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a light behind you on that third point of the triangle. And what that backlight is going to do is visually separate the subject of the shot from the background. So you'll notice here I have my virtual background. I actually, when everything's set up, I normally try to have a pretty good backlight. In fact, I actually have a light that's up here. You can see it kind of, when I do this, I have a light that's up here above me on the wall. And that helps, you can see there's a little bit of extra kind of a haloing effect almost on my hair up here. And it helps the Zoom software figure out what is the background, which is my green screen, versus what's me. And your eyes do that as well. So if you have, if you have light coming in from behind, you get kind of this nice effect around the edges of that person, and you can tell or of whatever is in the foreground, and you can tell essentially your brain automatically will zoom in and pay attention to the subject of the shot rather than looking at all the details that are in the background. You want the background to be there and visible, but you don't want the background to be the primary focus. And if you don't have that backlight separating your subject and your background visually, it's going to be hard to tell. It's going to be hard for people's eyes to tell where they should be looking when they're watching your footage. One last thing is what we call composition. So composition is basically where the stuff is in your shot in relation to the edges of the shot, the center of the shot, those types of things. So, so one key thing to remember about composition is, generally speaking, you don't want to put your subject directly in the middle of the frame. If you look at where I am right now in this shot, you'll notice I'm a little off center. There's more space over here than there is over here. And that's good. You would think that you want to put people directly in the center, but that's not actually as appealing visually, at least for us who kind of are in the Western English-speaking world, things like that. Generally speaking, you want to have your subject a little bit, kind of toward the middle, but a little bit off center. There's a thing called, there's kind of a rule of thumb called the rule of thirds, where you take your frame and you divide it up into 9 sections by thirds. So these 2 thirds, essentially, or these 3 thirds, I should say, and then you divide it like here in your shot. And so you want, rather than falling directly in the middle, in that middle rectangle, you want your subject to fall somewhere along one of those lines that separates the horizontal thirds from each other and the vertical thirds from each other. So slightly off center, that's good. Generally speaking, if you're doing a talking head type video like this, you want to have your shot coming from a little bit above eye level. So right now my camera is probably, I'd say 4 or 5 inches above the point on my monitor that I'd be looking at if I stared straight ahead like this. And so that's a little bit more flattering of an angle. If you hold if you have your camera down, pointing up at you, you're going to look like a little weird and creepy, or sort of like a giant. And that's generally not the effect that you're going for. So slightly above your eye line is a good place to place your camera if, just in general. It's a flattering angle, makes a lot of different people look good. And so that's a good way to go. But of course, you can place your camera in a lot of different ways, just depending on what you're trying to get in the shot. The last thing I'll say about composition is that basically, unless you're shooting something for TikTok, nobody likes vertical videos or portrait videos. So generally speaking, you're going to look a lot more pro if you're shooting horizontally like this, where your frame is wider than it is tall. And that's, I mean, part of that is just because if people are watching on TV or they're watching on a monitor, then you know, that video is going to fill up the whole screen. And if they're watching on their phone, they can always turn their phone to the side so that it fills up the whole screen there. Whereas if it's portrait video, anybody who's not watching it on their phone is going to have huge black bars on each side of your video. So so try to avoid that if at all possible. I mean, if you're just shooting a quick little video like, you know, hey guys, I'm outside waiting for the concert. Don't go to a concert now. Wait until you get until everybody gets vaccinated. But you know, if some point in the future you're just taking a quick video while you're out and about, then portrait video is fine for that. But anything that you're doing that you want a little bit more polish on, shoot it landscape like this. Hamburger, not hot dog, I guess. Cool. Okay, let's dive in and let's talk about editing. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. I've got my example footage ready to go, and we're going to jump into Shotcut. So Shotcut, in case you missed this in the description of the of the class when you registered, or in the video feed, Shotcut is a program that it's a free and open source video editing program. So you can download it for free, and it's made by primarily a community of people who are interested in having this kind of software exist. And that's really cool. So that's what we're going to use today. There are a bunch of different video editing programs. I'm looking into at some point possibly switching even this class over to something a little bit fancier, which is DaVinci Resolve. That's an editing program that's also free, but is essentially there's like a pro version that professionals use quite a bit. But the free version is pretty full featured. So we might end up switching to that, or we might stick with this, just depending on how they perform relevant to each other. Video editing is one of those things that can be really hard on your computer. It can take a while. And so you want to have software that's not like huge and requires a ton of fancy computer hardware, unless you happen to have access to fancy computer hardware, in which case, congratulations, use whatever video editing software you want. Let me fire up the screen share and we will switch and we will hop on into Shotcut. Okay, cool. All right. So I've got my Shotcut window already open. And we're going to kind of dive right in and we're going to talk about the parts of the program as we move forward. So we won't go through the whole layout right now. We'll just talk about pieces as we need them. And that way we can focus on the editing bits somewhat. Okay, so I've got it open. It says untitled up here. So we've got a new blank project in front of us. One of the key things to think about when you use that word project, pretty much any video editing software that you encounter these days is going to be what we call non-destructive, non-linear editing. What that means is, so the non-destructive part means that when you work with your video, whenever you shoot, you're gonna shoot a lot of footage that you're not gonna use. Takes where somebody forgot their line, or where a car horn honked in the middle of the take, or somebody was bouncing around in the background of the shot trying to to crash or whatever. Whole host of things that could go wrong, bad audio. So you're going to have a lot of footage that you won't use, and you're going to want to trim that off so that you get to a version of the thing that you do want to use. But sometimes you trim something off, and then you decide, oh, I need a little bit more of that footage, or or you can use it a different way, or whatever. And so you don't want to lose that when you trim it off. That's what the non-destructive part is. When you use video editing software, what you're going to do is point the software to the files that live on your computer that have all the footage and audio and everything else in there. And then once you've got that, and then once you've pointed it in that direction, then as you kind of trim things off or speed something up or slow it down or whatever, it doesn't change the original files. What it does is it kind of acts like a stage manager in a play and says, okay, you're on. And then it plays this part of the clip. And then it goes to that other clip and it says, okay, we're going to start at 5 minutes and 10 seconds, go. And so you're just basically taking little bits and playing them all in a specific order, rather than cutting it up and putting it together like a collage. So that's the non-destructive part. The non-linear part means you can go in any order that you choose. So I can, if I'm making a full-length movie, I can start by editing the last 10 minutes, the climax of the film, and really getting that right. And then I can kind of work backwards from there. Or I can start with the very first shot and move forward from there. Or I can kind of start in the middle in some of the more important bits, get them right, and then work my way outward. However I want to do it. I can take a scene from the end and I can scoot it back to the beginning. It doesn't matter. I can edit in any order that I choose. And so that way, and because of that, I don't have to worry about having I don't have to worry so much about sort of the specifics of what needs to go first, or being super duper organized. I can kind of let I can let the creative process guide me rather than technical requirements, and that is really handy. Okay, so let's point our project file here to our footage. What I'm going to do is over here on the left-hand side, now that I've opened this up, is this playlist box right here. The playlist box has some headings here: number, thumbnails, clip, end, duration, start, and date. And then down here, it has some buttons. The button I'm looking for right now is the little plus button. I'll click that. Oh, come on now. Okay, this does not bode well. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna see if I can sort this out really quick. Okay. All right, I think we're almost there. Okay. My computer is being a little difficult for me. All right, I think we got it. Still doesn't like me doing that though. Okay, I'm gonna click on this open file up here and that should fire it up for me. All right, so we've got our, so I'm gonna head to the desktop where I put the footage that, I'm gonna be working with in this advising scene folder. And I'm gonna take all of these clips and import them into the program. So when I do this, what's going to happen is I've got these 6 clips, and I just want to select all of them, so that way I don't have to go back and get each one individually, because that'd be kind of annoying. So the easiest way to do that, I'm going to take my mouse, hold down with the mouse button, and just drag so that I get a box around all 6 of them. And that'll select them so I can use them in my project. Another option would be click the first one, hold down Shift, and click the last one. That should work too. Or if you want to click each one individually, or if you had, say, a few files that you wanted to bring in, but not every file in this folder you wanted, you could click on one and then hold Control, CTRL, at the bottom left of your keyboard while clicking the others. So I'm holding Control while clicking this. If you're on a Mac rather than a PC like I am, instead of Control, use the Command key that with the little squiggly thing that kind of looks like a stove. I'll click Open, and that should add all 6 of those files to my playlist here. All right, great. And it starts playing one right away. So what we've got, this is a little scene that I found online that's meant for editing practice. And basically they shot a scene for this sort of short film where the student has come in and he's talking with his college advisor about essentially, well, what his schedule is going to be, but really the fact that he's sort of struggling a little bit in his academic career, and so what we want to do is edit this into a dynamic scene. So I'm not going to do a ton of this just because of time constraints. Excuse me. But what you want to do whenever you're working on something like this is you want to kind of run through the footage, watch each clip as you're bringing it in, and and notice the details about it. Notice what's good about it. Notice the problems with it, whatever they are. And there are some, sometimes you might even want to kind of take notes and things like that so that you can or rename certain clips inside of your editing software so that you can get it, or so that what's in each clip. That is extremely useful. And so in order to do that, you've got a little video player option here. Actually, there are 2 video players in the middle of my shortcut window. The first one is this one down here that's labeled source. That's the one that we're using right now. Source means your source video or audio file or your source image or whatever, essentially the original file that's stored somewhere on your computer that you're going to be incorporating into the bigger project. Then there's the project tab down here. The project tab, if I were to click on it, actually wouldn't do much of anything because, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of new, I think. Oh, okay. So you can actually use this to watch through all the clips in order. See how there are numbers down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That corresponds to these numbers on the playlist over here. So you could actually watch through all of your footage in one go if you wanted to. You can use this little scroll bar here, or this little line here. You can drag and move that around. This is called the playhead, generally speaking. The playhead just shows you where you are in a particular video. I mean, it's pretty much the exact same thing as the little, if you're watching a YouTube video, the little red dot that you see at the bottom that you can drag to get to different parts of the video. That's all the playhead is. So when we switch over, when we actually put some footage into our timeline, then we'll be using the monitor in a slightly different way here. Okay, so all right. I'm actually going to set one other. I actually had to reinstall this software. I had to restart, or I had to set. I had to kind of reset my computer, wipe everything and sort of start over not too long ago. And so I just reinstalled. The Shotcut earlier. Let's see. Here we go. So I'm going to tweak one additional setting here. So hopefully we'll get a little bit better performance. Okay, this is not seeming to work. Whatever. All right. Anyway, we'll just continue on. All right, so let's go ahead and watch one of these clips and just see kind of what it contains. So this is the first one. This is MVI_226A.mov. So we pan around as she comes in and sits down. She's sitting there kind of working on her computer. Students sitting there off camera.
You can do a cut there.
And okay, yeah. And the director talks in the background there at the end. So we want to make sure not to use that section. One of the things we can do to avoid that, make sure we avoid it, is right about here is where he starts talking. So I'm actually going to come over here, take this little thing. It's kind of an arrow with a white line next to it. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag it in a little bit until we get to that spot. What that's going to do is set what's called the out point for the clip. You can also set an in point for the clip if you want to take the first little bit off of it. So what that'll do is when I add this, or if I add this to the timeline in my project, it will automatically cut that part off that's outside of the in points and the out points. So that way I get only the piece of the clip that I really want. So let's see. Let's go ahead and drag this down. What I'm going to do is hold down. Whoops. I'm going to hold down in the middle here of the player. Whoops. How did that change? Weird. All right, there we go. I'm going to hold down in the middle of my player here, and I'm going to drag with the mouse, click and drag, and drop it right down here. And what it'll do is give me this little, it'll put this clip into the timeline down here at the bottom. The reason that's important is we've got our, we have our individual clips. We've got to kind of figure out when each one needs to start and which one needs to end. And so we want, so this will help us kind of with that assembly process. Here we go. Now we can watch this. You'll notice I've switched to the project tab down here at the bottom. So now we can watch this playback without too much difficulty. All right, cool. So we've got that to start with. I'm going to click on another one of these. Again, we switch to the source tab.
Advisor scene.
Let's see. Okay, yeah. This one we've actually got dialogue, but this is kind of the same. If we want to use this introduction, like she comes in, she comes in this clip, she comes in here, we follow her around, she sits down and kind of does some work. That's essentially the same thing that happens in this clip, although it's from a slightly different angle. And oh, whoop, we got a camera. That's a problem. So we don't want to use this walk-in because our equipment's in the frame. So we won't use that. But that also means we'll need some way, because we also have the advisor's dialogue in this version of the shot. We'll need to switch back and look at the student before we move on to parts of the dialogue where she's speaking. Otherwise, it'll be pretty jarring for our audience because we'll be at a slightly different camera angle, and she just won't be moving in quite the same ways. It won't match. So we need to make sure that, so we need to cut away to the student before we come into her dialogue in this version, or in this clip. So let's see, let's look at some of the shots of the student.
And action.
And so that we can do this a little bit more quickly, rather than sitting here and watching it at regular speed, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start playing it, then I'm gonna hit the L key on my keyboard. What that's going to do is speed it up a little bit.
I assume you care to explore your options for next semester?
Yeah, there wasn't a sign-up sheet outside the door, so I figured I just stopped in.
There was a sign-up sheet last week. Oh. So can I see your schedule?
So that'll allow me to kind of see, oh, okay, all right, we've got the dialogue here. We've got her crossing behind him. Let's see, let's find a good shot of him sort of just sitting there, waiting for her. There we go. He kind of looks over to the side. I feel like that could sort of, it seems like, I think what's actually happening is he's looking at the advisor actor as she comes in, but a good way to use this could be kind of a nervous shifting glance. So you don't necessarily have to be super literal and use and use everything exactly as it was intended during the shoot. We can use it any way we want. So he could kind of be like, should I say something? She's just sitting there working on her computer. Should should I be the first one to speak or what? So let's come in here. So I've set, again, I grabbed the little edge. I set the in point here. So we'll come into this clip starting there. I'm going to take this and drag it down. And I'm just going to set it right here or so for now. You'll notice it says overwrite there in big letters. What that'll mean is essentially we're cutting off the end of this original clip, excuse me, and using and just putting this in its place. So I'll drop it there. And now we go from sitting there, working on her computer. And she kind of smacks her lips there, so we might actually move this a little further. So I'm going to move my mouse over here, and I'm going to take this, and it'll give me this little hand. I'll hold down with the mouse button there, and I'm just going to drag this back a smidge so that that sort of lip smack that doesn't happen. But when I do that, it's actually going to give me this little, by default, apparently it's going to give me this little crossfade. We don't want that. So I'm going to click on that and press delete there. And that will get rid of that transition. If you need a transition like that, that's a good way to do it. Generally speaking, when you're just, when in the course of normal editing, you're not going to use flashier transitions like that nearly as often as you'll just use a cut. So just moving from one shot directly into another.
I assume you're here to explore your.
Cool. So we've got this. That's kind of an awkward little intro. Probably what would happen if I were doing this for real, I would probably cut this down a bit more because you can still get that awkwardness without literally 20 seconds or so of sitting there in silence. We probably don't need to belabor the point quite that much, but for now we'll leave it and move on to some other things. So let's try, let's see, I'm going to go with this one, MVI underscore. Okay, this one is, that's kind of another student one. Let's find where her dialogue is. Okay, 227A, 2227A. Let's drag this one. Well, let's watch it and see. So I'm going to double click on that. It opens up in the source video player. Let's skip forward a little because we know we already have her intro, like her entering the scene. We don't need that.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester?
Yeah, I didn't see an...
There we go. Okay, so. This is a pretty good spot. This is kind of where she starts speaking. If I want to go back a little ways, like to before she opens her mouth, I'll just go back a few frames. Now, a little bit of terminology there. A frame in video terms is one of the still images that makes up a video. So for example, normally in film, like if you're shooting a movie that's going to be shown in a theater, in film, you usually shoot at 24 frames per second. So there are 24 still images flash on that silver screen each second that you're watching a movie. For TV, you're usually shooting at 30 frames per second. So a little bit faster, like a little bit smoother motion when you're watching something on TV versus when you're watching a movie. And that's part of the cinematic look. That's part of the way you can tell almost just at a glance whether what you're watching is a movie or a TV show. You can go And then there are other frame rates that are fairly common as well. 60 frames per second is the standard frame rate for video games, because you need to be able to track motion a little bit more closely to react quickly to whatever's happening on screen. And people are pushing frame rates in video games a lot higher as well. So the frame rate, of course, of your footage is something to know. And when I talk about a frame, like I said, I am just talking about those still images that make up my footage here. So to move back a frame in this video clip, I'm going to press the left arrow key on my keyboard. I'll hit it a few times. Yeah, that seems fine. There we go. Okay, good. All right, so this is going to be my endpoint. Now I could drag this. I'm actually just going to hit the I key on my keyboard, and that will mark this as the endpoint here. I'll come down here, drag it on down. And this time, rather than overwriting this clip, what I'm going to do is drag it into this blank area here and let go. Nope, and that did not do what I thought it was going to do. So I'll undo that. You can click Edit and then Undo up here, or you can press Control Z, or on a Mac, Command Z. I'm going to give myself a little more space in the timeline here. Okay, I'm going to come over here then, and I'm going to I'm going to right-click on this area right here on the left-hand side of the track. Track Operations, Add Video Track. Looks like Control I would be another way I could do that. All right, so now I've got this new video track that I can use instead of, or to essentially to leave this intact while adding this on. I'm going to drag this down here. I'll come to right here for now. One of the things that to bear in mind about this. So I've got this clip right here. Where that's a still shot on the student. When I get to this point, notice it cuts over to the advisor, even though the student, even though this clip focusing on the student is still running underneath this. I usually don't super need that, but sometimes it's useful, particularly if, for example, one audio track is better than the other. You might kind of put them together in the timeline. But anything that's above something else on the timeline, and this goes for pretty much any video editing software, anything that's above something else. So anything that I put in this V2 track here versus the V1 track down here will be in front of the stuff that's below it. So that will, so just bear that in mind. Anything that you put on top goes on top of whatever's below. So in this case, the clip of the advisor is blocking the clip of the student from being seen by my audience.
I assume you're here to explore.
Okay, so this is two different takes of the same video or of the same scene, and we've got
I assume you're here to explore your options.
and we've got the audio running concurrently with both of these. That's not great, so I'm going to have to adjust this a little bit. I could mute this clip altogether, but really what I want to do, just so that you'll notice there's some what we call ambient noise or room tone in the background. Things are happening. You can kind of hear little scrapings, and you can kind of hear like there's kind of a vague hiss in the background there. So what I want to do is actually leave that sound here until we get started with the dialogue, and then I want to stop that from, I want to stop the audio from this one, because this audio sounds a little bit nicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this clip selected, and I'm going to click on, let's see, which one do I, yeah. I'm going to click on filters over here. Click the plus sign. And then I'll go fade out audio right here. And now I can, then I'm going to zoom out a little bit on my timeline here so I can see the whole thing. I'll hit this magnifying glass to zoom out. When I get to the end here, yeah, there we go. So we should see, so I'm going to bring my playhead over here and I'm going to zoom back in. So now you can see there's a little bit of a gray thing right here where it fades the audio out, but that's not really what I want. I need that to actually, I need to tweak that a little bit. So let's see, here we go. Where is it? Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to come down here where there's this little tab that says keyframes. Click on that. And now I can see my filter over here that I've applied to this shot, fade out audio. And I can see the shot here. And I can see this little dot here. That's called a keyframe. What that does is it tells Shotcut, okay, this is where I want some action to start or end, or where I want it to be. So in this case, what I want to do is start here with the volume as high as it can be in this spot. And then I want to come over here. There should be another keyframe. Nope. Well, I'm so sorry, y'all. That's weird. All right, let's try something else here. There we go. Gain volume. That's what I was looking for earlier. Somehow I missed that. Okay, so I'm gonna come up here to my list of filters, and I'm actually gonna delete this fade out audio because that's not what I wanted. I actually wanted this one, gain/volume, right here. What that's gonna do is it's gonna give me these little keyframes where I can sort of fade in and out. So I could fade in with the audio here, but I don't want that. I can drag this to fade out. What I want to do is actually throw in another keyframe right about here. And there we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come up here, click on this little stopwatch, and that will that'll give me the option to adjust this. Click on the stopwatch, come over here, and to the left, I'm going to make sure that this is, oh, I'm going to start over here. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to use this to get to my keyframe right there. And then I'm going to come up to this level and drag it down. So I get -70, which is basically mute. Then I'm going to come over here, click on this stopwatch here, and I get another keyframe, another little diamond here. I'm going to drag that back up. So what's going to happen now is we first come into the shot. Oh, it actually needs to be a little lower, maybe. Yeah, that's too high. So I'll set that at 0. I can type it in and press enter, and that's helpful. And then we'll drop one more keyframe here because we don't want it to go, the level to drop super fast. This time I'm actually just going to drag it up like this so that the volume goes down gradually, and then it goes down quite a lot when we hit this point. I'm going to click my tab to go back to the timeline. And now when I play this, we should get a pretty smooth transition.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next
It's a
semester?
little early, but I think
yeah,
you get the
I
idea.
didn't see an advisor.
But we've got the good dialogue on this associated with this clip rather than this one. So we can just mute the dialogue in this clip and be perfectly fine. And then we just have to, excuse me, kind of sync it up depending on what we've got. There's a lot of other stuff that we can do. It looks like we're getting close on time, so I do want to make sure that we that I show you the end of this aspect of things, and then I show you the upload process really quick. So once I'm done with everything, of course, you'll want to save your work periodically. So there's save and save as up here. But once I'm done, if everything's been edited to my exact specifications, I still couldn't, or I still am not quite finished because my video is going to be, because I have to set up, or I have to actually create a video file of the final version where it's all in one file. Otherwise, what'll have to happen is if somebody else wanted to watch it on their computer and I didn't do this final step, you would have to give them all of the video files that you used and images and audio files and everything that you used in creating your project. They would have to have Shotcut installed on their computer, and they would have to have your project file. And so that's a real pain. That's not what we want to happen. What we want to do instead is, once we're done, come up here and click on Export Video. And that's going to open this Export tab down at the bottom over on the side here. And from there, we can choose we can choose what kind of file we want to come up with. So my suggestion, generally speaking, it kind of depends on a number of factors, but a good option here would be H.264. What that is that's a pretty high quality form of, or that's a type of file that's a pretty high quality form of compression. And so it won't end up being a super large video file, but it'll still look high quality. So I'll click on H.264 main profile, that's fine. So I'll select that. If you have a graphics card in your computer for playing games or that sort of thing, then you do want to check the box that says use hardware encoder, because that's going to make your stuff export a lot faster. But if you're just using a laptop, or you have a computer that's mostly like just kind of a work computer for spreadsheets or whatever, then you may not have that kind of hardware, and so this may not do you any good. Then you can just click Export File. It's going to ask you where you want to save it. Give it a name, click Save. And then if you choose H.264, what should happen is it should give you a file called whatever you named it, .mp4. So you can actually see if I drag this a little bit. Oh, there we go. Nope, come on now. There we go. So advising test.mp4. That'll be the file that I'm looking for. So I'm going to cancel the export because I'm not going to actually create this file. So I clicked on it and I clicked down here at the bottom and I clicked stop this job so that it would stop exporting. And I'll hit delete on my keyboard just to, no, that won't work. Okay, cool. All right, so now I've got my video. I'm done in Shotcut. I'm going to click exit. I'm not going to save my changes this time. And now I'm going to switch over to my web browser. and we'll do, we'll talk a little bit about uploading. All right. Computer is really testing my patience today. Nope. Oh, I see. All right, excellent. Okay, here we are. I'm gonna fire up the screen share again. Okay, now I've got my screen sharing up, and hey, there I am. And now I'm here in YouTube. I'm signed into my account. If you don't have a Google account, you'll need one in order to use YouTube. So just bear that in mind. Once you're signed in, I'll click on the little profile picture up here at the top. And I'm going to click on YouTube Studio in order to upload my, my video there. All right. Cool. Now I'm in the back end of my channel here, or the library's channel in this case. What I'm going to do is click on Content. And I can see all the videos that I've published. I'll click Create up here at the top and click Upload Videos. And then I can either click Select Files, or I can actually drag a file from my computer's file browser into this window. So let me see what we can find here. All right, I'll pop in here. All right, so got that. There's a clip. I'll click Open, and it's going to start uploading for me. It's not a huge clip, so it should go pretty fast. And then it's going to drop me in this area right here. So what we have is I'll need to fill in a title. And your title can be up to 100 characters long. If you're doing some sort of ongoing series or something like that, make sure you put that in the title in addition to the title of this actual video itself. Then down here in the description, we can tell people about the video in up to 5,000 characters. Key thing here, describe your video accurately and, you know, and in, I guess, somewhat of detail maybe, so that you're more likely to find an audience that's searching for things that are related to the video. So you can definitely include links in the description. You can even, if you do something like, you know, 01:12, you can even give people, that will actually turn into a link that allows people to skip forward to portions of the video that they might particularly be interested in. So that's pretty handy. Down here, your thumbnail. So the thumbnail, YouTube is going to give you 3 options for what the thumbnail should be. If you don't like any of them, you can go back into your software and capture capture a still frame from your video, or you can create something a little a little more specific, that's exactly the way you want it, in Photoshop or whatever. You can click upload thumbnail. The trickiest part of that, in my experience, is that it only allows files of up to 2 megabytes in size. So if you want it to look good and detailed, you've got to balance that with the file size that it comes out with, and that's kind of tricky. Playlists down here, you can use playlists to organize your videos. If you have videos on certain key topics that you keep coming back to, maybe you have a playlist of those. If you're doing little ongoing series, you might turn that into a playlist so people can watch all the videos of the series in one go or in a few sittings. Excuse me. YouTube does require that you mark a video as either for kids or not for kids. There are certain things that there are certain features that are turned off for videos that are targeted towards kids. And those include some features that could impact how much money you make if you're trying to make YouTube a business. So just be mindful of that. And of course, you can restrict videos that aren't for kids to certain ages if you decide you want or need to do that. When I click next here, it's going to take me to this video element. So you can do a couple of things. You can add what's called an end screen, which will basically be little icons that pop up that allow you to access, or that point your viewers to other videos on your channel, to they give them a shortcut to subscribe to your channel, that point to other channels that you might want them to be aware of, anything like that. And then cards during your video, you can add certain little pieces of content that pop up. The options that you have in terms of what sorts of content you can put in cards, very, 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 very limited. So just bear that in mind. When I click next, I get my final set of options here: save or publish. So I have 3 visibility options here: private, unlisted, and public. Private videos, if you're signed into your YouTube account as you, or if you designate other people who can also access it, then you and those other people can watch your video, but nobody else can. And everybody has to be signed into their Google account in order to access it. Unlisted says anyone with the video link can watch your video. So what's going to happen is if somebody goes to your channel, they're not going to see the unlisted videos showing. They're not going to see it as content that you posted if they go to your channel, or if they search for a search term that would be relevant to the video. Since it's unlisted, they're not going to see it. Only people that you share the link with, or people that they share the link with, or people that they share the link with, will be able to watch the video. And then public, and they don't have to be signed into a YouTube account. And then public, everyone can watch your video. That's going to be the default. Most of the time, you're going to want to use that. And then you have this checkbox that says set as instant premiere. When you click on that, if you click on that, what's going to happen is immediately your channel will be marked as doing sort of a live stream, and people can come and essentially watch your video live together for the first time that it shows. And then later on, if they come back to your channel, they can watch it anytime they want in kind of the normal way. But if they go to that video, if your video is 20 minutes long, if they go to the video watch page for the first 20 minutes, then they're going to see wherever everybody else is in watching it, basically, so that everybody can watch and sort of enjoy it together as kind of a live, like live TV, basically. Schedule is a similar type of thing. Schedule is going to be the same as publishing your video the regular way. The only difference is you'll set a date and a time, and the video will be private until then, and after that, it'll be public. And so they will, anyone else who's following your channel or whatever, subscribed, they will see the video as having been posted, at midnight on the 27th or whatever. And then set as premiere is the same thing as the instant premiere, like I mentioned above, except you can set a specific time and date that the video will play live for the first time. And then after that, it'll be viewable anytime that someone visits the page. So, if you want the video to, if you want everybody to be able to watch the video live together for the first time at 7 p.m. on Friday night or whatever, then just set it, click set as premiere, set that date, and then the video will run for everybody at the same time at first. And then after that, they'll be able to go back and watch it anytime they want. Once I click schedule or like publish, then the video will go live, and anyone who's on my channel will be able to see it, well, assuming that I set it as public here. If I click the X, it'll be saved as a draft. So so I'll see here in the list of content draft. So so that tells me like this hasn't been published yet, nobody's seen it, and I can go in and edit those bits that I just showed you at any point and publish it whenever I'm ready. In this case, I'm going to click the little ... and click delete forever. Okay, I had a question from someone. When you publish your video, can you opt in for closed captioning? Well, yeah, kind of like the way that works, that's a really good question. The way that works is like YouTube by default is going to automatically generate captions for you. So it uses like AI type software to, voice recognition type software to sort of go through and say, okay, like this is to try to figure out what you're saying. After, once it has analyzed the video, you can actually go in and change that, like tweak those auto captions. So let's see if we can do it here. See. Oh, subtitles, here we go. So I'll click on subtitles down here. And then there it is, English automatic. And then I can, if I click duplicate and edit, I can go in and edit that and let the, and correct if essentially if the computer misheard. Here where it says English United States video language, if I click add here, I can upload my own subtitle file. There's specific software or a specific format that you have to upload it in, which to be honest, I haven't played around with much. But if you want to upload your own captions, or subtitles, that's how you would do it. And I find, editing the one that they have, the one that's been auto-generated is actually a pretty good way to go, because then you don't have to spend forever transcribing every word that you said in the video, but you also don't have to, but you also don't, but you can get it accurate. So that's great. You can also, folks can, depending on what your situation is, you can like hire people who, you can hire people who are transcriptionists, or there are even companies out there that are like where people essentially do transcription like that on the cheap as kind of a little side hustle or something like that. So I don't know what the quality of that is going to be like, and the kind of labor implications of that, I think, are a little suspect, but your mileage may vary. But yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking about that. What other questions do folks have before we wrap it up for today? All right. I don't see anything else. If you do have another question, or if you think of it after class is over, totally cool. You can email me with additional questions at digital@cals.org. And thank you all so much for joining me. It's Friday, so I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. And hopefully I'll see you again at another class soon. Have a great week.